This buck was my record, my personal record for a long time. From 2001 up till I shot Tie Rod. His name was ZIG ZAG. I'd followed him quite a bit the year before. Got 75 yards from him in the fog and jumped him and couldn't get a shot and couldn't believe the size of him. And ended up spending a beautiful day chasing him and not getting him. And we only hunted for a week back then in 2001. So when I went back the following year and looked around and couldn't seem to find him, and then later on went up the mountain and dedicated myself to finding him, and I did. And he had a doe, and I followed him for probably half a mile or more, and I'd already climbed a 3,000 footer that day, and then I started up my second 3,000 footer and found him and ended up pulling the trigger. He was making a scrape in front of me and lip curling on the scrape right in front of me, and ended up shooting him at about 4 o'clock in the evening. And then I dragged him from dark all the way down the mountain as far as I could, and I think I dragged him about half a mile or so. And I was going the right direction. That was back before GPS, back when I didn't need a flashlight, and ended up dragging him as far as I could, and the radio batteries were starting to die. It was well after dark, and I hadn't heard from anybody, and I was headed the right direction. I was going the right way, but boy, I didn't realize I was still more than 1.25 miles from the road. And our plan was, if somebody didn't come out of the woods at night, we would fire a shot at the top of the hour and the bottom of the hour, and everybody be listening. And then finally at about 10:30, I'd gone through a few shells, and good thing I carried that box with me. And all of a sudden, I at top of the hour and bottom of the hour, I turned my radio on too, and the boys came on the radio, and Donnell, I was talking to him, and he had been on my backtrack, so from like 5 o'clock on, trying to catch up to me, and he was up the mountain behind me on my backtrack, coming along down the tracks. He finally made it down to me. We had quite a radio conversation when he got down to me. I was super tired. My back was killing me. I got the buck in this hole, and I couldn't get him out. And I said, well, I'm just going to leave him right here. It was rainy and snowy, and I said, well, I'm going to make myself a bed. So I took a bunch of spruce branches and piled them all up and made myself a bed, and built a fire, poked myself in the eye with a stick in the dark, and had quite a time. Finally got him, Donnell got down to me. He had a GPS at the time, and needless to say, I cut some back straps, the tenderloins out of the buck, and started cooking them on my fire. And now that I've got a poked eye, and I've only got one eye, and the fire dies down some, and the smoke's pretty good, and it gets in my good eye. Now I'm practically blind. I cooked a fair amount of the tenderloin. It had dried into this terrible terrible meat on a stick, and I ate some of it, and Donnell wasn't coming, and it was going bad. And I said, well, I'll cook him another one when he gets here. And Donnell finally gets to me in the middle of the night. He's all tired out. His mag light is still working, thank God. And we finally stumble out of the woods and get back down to the rig, and it's back to camp at 1 o'clock in the morning. What a hunt. The next morning we went back up with the sled and the chainsaw. And I don't think we get out there till like 6:30, and then started climbing the mountain and got up to him and looked him over, took a whole bunch of pictures, and then hooked him into a sled. And Lewis is carrying the chainsaw here, trying to get us out, cutting downfalls out of our way. And we finally made it down to the road at about 11:30, working on noon, when we finally got the deer out of the woods. What a hunt, just fantastic. And we were so in awe at him. We kept stopping and looking at him as we were coming down through, and just in awe of the deer. He was the biggest thing we'd ever seen up there. And what a very memorable hunt. When I got back, you can see how young the kids were. That's pretty amazing too. This was back before we carried any amount of video cameras. At any rate, we had instant cameras back then, and apparently mine got some water inside of it or something, and some of the photos have red all over them. It was all we had at the time, and I let everybody else drag my deer while I was taking pictures all the way down through. And like Donnell says, Elmer got another gift from God. The poor guy, gotta hand it to him. He came to the rescue that day, did such a great job. He says, how far do you think you are from the road? And I said, oh, I don't know, 500-600 yards. And he says, oh no, you're 2 or 3 miles from the road, so you still have a mile to go. I'd gone a long ways that day, and with no flashlight, no GPS, I was happy, and I could have stayed right there. I wasn't leaving that deer. I didn't know what the weather was going to be, and there was no way I was going to find it, and I wasn't sure there was going to be snow in the morning. And I said, no, I'm staying right here. I'm not leaving this deer. And he came to the rescue, and with that GPS, it was awesome. Yep. Thanks a lot, Donnell. Great job. This picture here is Donnell kissing the road when we made it down there. And even once we got down to the road, we couldn't help but admire the deer a little bit. But he ended up having a 21-inch spread. Pretty good, big, like forklift horns. Just a wicked deer. He was a beauty, and really an honor.